Hey folks, it's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ Stocks, crypto assets, news and interviews. Today is Thursday, it's August 29th. Hope you're doing fantastic. In this video, we're going to be discussing an article and an analyst that is saying that the hearing and rescheduling being delayed could actually be a positive turn of events. And I'll go over a video that I posted on this news as well. It was a bit long. It was a live stream, so I'll give my thoughts and opinions. Before we get to it, though, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. As always, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, and you should never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. This is for entertainment purposes only. Also, just launched members on the channel. I'm going to be doing a ton of perks and member-only videos, essentially, but shout out to all the new members. Getting a ton of members, really do appreciate all of the support. You can also follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. Handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. And some exciting news today, they're going to be launching an app that's going to be competing with YouTube as they look to enable pretty much the everything on the app. It's the everything app, right? So exciting times. This was the video I posted a couple of days ago saying the DEA hearing scheduled after elections, which is delaying rescheduling. While it's unfortunate, it's disappointing that it's not going to happen sooner than we would like. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, I mentioned in this video that there might be some positive to this because it's going through due process. It can't come back to bite us in the afterwards. That's literally what I said in this video a couple of days ago. And then now we have this article here from the Green Market Report, which came out today, August 29th, how the MJ rescheduling delay could be a positive turn of events. So it seems like they're in agreement with me. And I also mentioned that the fact that they're delaying this means that they might have to pump this in their political campaigns a lot more because they're not going to be able to ride off the coattails of rescheduling. And like I said, it's just a good thing that I think it's following due process because it's not going to come back to bite us in the afterwards. And we'll go through the details. But if you haven't seen this video, I also posted this just about an hour ago. This is a must watch. I think a lot of people are getting frustrated and the long wait, but it took big tech after the dot-com days. Some names took over 10 years to hit new all-time highs. And for the whole sector to go back into all-time high territory, it took on average about a decade. Some names were 5, 7 years. Some names were 10. Some were, 16 years before they crashed and burned and then went into new all-time highs. But in this video, I talk about all of big tech hitting a new all-time high, and it was about a decade. So I talk about what that could mean for MJ. And check that out for more details on that. But I also mentioned in this video here that while the delay sucks, we're still really ahead of schedule. Like if you look down, this is a long road ahead for US MJ rescheduling. This was back on May 7th of this year. And it goes through all of the roadmap and timeline and the entire process. We're essentially ahead by about a year. So just to get to the administrative hearing, it said 90 days, public comment period, 30 to 90 days. And then administrative hearing could be a few months to over a year if granted. And it's already going to be scheduled for December 2nd. So at this point, we're basically a year ahead of schedule going by the maximum timeline there. So, at the end of the day, we're still chugging along pretty good. And here's the article that I found really interesting. So how the MJ rescheduling delay could be a positive turn of events. So the wheels of the government turn slowly, as we know, especially when the issue is groundbreaking. The announcement and they had record number of comments too, over 43,000 comments. And most people were in favor of descheduling. They think that rescheduling isn't enough, right? So the announcement by the U.S. DEA that it was granting an administrative hearing may have doused the burning desire for a quick rescheduling decision. And in this heightened political atmosphere, with a critical presidential election just 8 weeks away, may have injected politics into the process when it looks like it could be ordinary government procedure. An administrative hearing was always a possibility, which we've been covering on the channel for a while now as well. I didn't think it was the most likely scenario because I thought they would want to get it done before the elections. But again, it's fine. In my opinion, it's fine as long as it was never going to happen in 2024 anyway. They might have skipped the rule or the hearing. And then if we look at the next process, they would have went from the hearing to the DEA review and then the final rule and then the judicial review. So there's no way that it would have been enacted in 2024 anyway. The only thing that would have happened in 2024 is the potential final ruling, right? Where they could have just skipped the hearing and then went to the DEA review and then issued a final ruling. But it was never going to be enacted, right, in 2024. It was just a question of was it going to go through the hearing and then, enacted in 2025 or early 2025. Now it's looking like it's probably going to be late 2025, but it's looking like it's on a surefire path towards being enacted, right? I think that there's still a small chance that it could be descheduled right? We have multiple bills going through. We have the CAOA, the MORE Act, you have the States Act. So it's potential that it could be descheduled, but I think I always said that rescheduling is the most likely scenario first. They'll take that incremental approach. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's we're still chugging along pretty good. And this could be a good thing, and I agree with it. So they moved. The administrative hearing was always a possibility. The DEA received a number of requests for this additional level of information gathering. The DEA agreed and set December 2nd as the date. People interested in speaking, and people are asking, why are they having a hearing? Well, it's for people interested in speaking at the hearing, whether they're for or against. They have until September 25th to register their request. So how long the hearing ultimately runs will depend on how many parties want to testify or are allowed. Considering the thousands of comments rescheduled received, this could be a fairly large number, right? So this might be a bit of a process as well, but we'll see. I think they'll want to get it done at some point in 2025, but we'll go through the analyst comment here in just a moment. Even this stage of the process has several steps. An administrative law judge still needs to be appointed. After the hearing, the judge will write and file a report on the testimony provided. Then the DEA still needs to review the report and write its final rulemaking, which needs to be published in the Federal Register. Even in a perfect scenario where the hearing only lasts a week or two and the judge and DEA complete their task quickly, that final rulemaking will be subject to a 30-day wait period before being enacted. So as I mentioned, right, it was probably never going to be enacted in 2024 anyway. It also wouldn't be a shock if during that 30-day period, legal challenges were mounted, right? Regardless of the outcome. That could bump the effort to the Circuit Court of Appeals to rule on whether to issue a stay. All that to say, the process isn't likely to be completed before the inauguration of whoever wins the presidential election. So extra care, let me just go through. So yeah, while the delay is disappointing for many in the industry, Pablo Zwanek and Zwanek Associates see a positive aspect to this turn of events. And this is kind of in the same line of thinking that I was mentioning, particularly considering no substances have ever been rescheduled in a downward manner. We could see this as part of the DOJ. We doubt the DEA acted unilaterally without consulting the DOJ, dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and making sure the review process is bulletproof to legal challenges, Zwanek wrote. So as I mentioned, right, it's making sure that it doesn't come back to bite us in the what, and we follow due process. And I agree, kind of bulletproofing that. Moreover, in our view, that the fact that the hearing will be held after the election adds further credibility to the entire process, he added. Zwanek also believes that the fact that the DA itself called for a hearing will give Ann Milgram, the administrator of the agency, more leverage internally to finish the process. Plus, if voices from both sides are heard at the hearing, there's a lower chance of a legal challenge to the final decision. So that's a good point as well. Right? You go through that process, and that was the time to kind of bring it up, right? And then they talk about presidential power. They say that if Harris is elected, Zwanek said, while she may want full federal legalization and scheduling, completing the rescheduling in her first term would be a significant achievement, and further reform can be left for an eventual second term. And we'll see what happens, right? But we know RFK just endorsed Trump, and he's very pro MJ as well. So in my opinion, I don't think it's going to matter. I think, at the end of the day, we're going to get this across the finish line. Probably not, full-blown legalization in the next year or two, but as I mentioned in this video, tech recovery, it's looking like, if we kind of compare to the dot-com days, it took about a decade. Well, all-time highs in MJ, really, we haven't seen an all-time high across the sector since 2018 when all names were ripping to new all-time highs, right? So if we kind of use that same type of scenario where the boom and bust, right, from the dot-com days in 2000 and compare that to the 2018 days when Canada legalized MJ, well, that's a similar type of event and catalyst in terms of growth, right? And now that everything's bottoming out, it's been about, 5-6 years, and, another, call it 2-3 years, maybe 5 years, we start to see full-blown legalization in the U.S., and that would coincide nicely with this same kind of process and thought process, right? And thought experiment. But someone commented on my video as well that showed out, I can't remember the name, but showed out to you that commented, things move a lot quicker now, right? It's not like it was back in the day, and I would agree. And plus, the growth that is there because, in the tech.com days, in the tech bubble, they weren't selling Schedule 1 illegal drugs in the U.S., right? Federally illegal drugs. And Apple even almost went bankrupt in 1997. And if it wasn't for Microsoft bailing them out with a $150 million investment, saving them from bankruptcy. So if that could happen to Apple not selling Schedule 1 federally illegal drugs in the U.S., well, that just means, in my opinion, that there's a lot more growth ahead of these MJ companies. And the more growth catalysts that you have, especially look at the UK, right? If the UK were to legalize, it's double the population of the US, right? and then the US legalizes, there's so much growth. It's not even funny, right? And again, we're not going to be the valuation of an Amazon or an Apple or a Microsoft, some of these MJ names, right? They might hit 100 billion or a few hundred billion, but they're not going to be in the $3 trillion mark, right? At least, not anytime soon. You're looking at multiple decades out if that's even a remote possibility, but it's obviously not. It's not the same addressable market. At the end of the day, I think $100 billion market cap on some of these names in, a decade or so, once we hit that blue chip phase, is very realistic. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. No one has a crystal ball. As long as we win more than we lose, and at the end of the day, like I said, this industry isn't going anywhere, right? Whether it takes another 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, it's not going anywhere. Eventually, they're going to reform. There was another poll out today that showing all the support for full-blown legalization in the U.S. on both sides of the aisle, and it's an overwhelming majority. About 70 to 80% of the entire American population want it. So eventually, it's just going to become un-American if they don't get it done, right? If they don't, well, do you even live in a democracy at that point if the majority rule, right? And the majority want it. So in my opinion, it's just a matter of when, not if, and we just have to be patient. Look how quickly it went from the last election to we're already at the next election in the US. We'll blink, and then in another 3 years, we'll be talking about the next election. So I know it seems like it's taken forever, but the wait is probably coming to an end, in my opinion. Obviously not financial advice, not telling you to buy, sell, or hold, but I think, the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to start to see a massive recovery. And then, the next 3 to 5 years, I think we could see the US legalize at the federal level, and, the other European nations as well. All right, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section below. We'll continue the conversation there. It's Rod with Powell Group. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, Canna Source, and we'll see you again on the next video.